Welcome, everybody. My name is Craig Monroe. I'm the founder and editor of Elegant Literature. I am joined today by the most recent winner of the Elegant Literature Award for New Writers, I Mumford. John, congratulations on winning the contest. How are you feeling right now?
Well, thanks. I'm excited, I guess. I mean, it's been a lot to think about and really get used to. It's taken me a couple of weeks just to calm down from seeing the award.
That's why you postponed the interview a little bit. You didn't schedule it right away. Yeah, gotta
Yeah,
calm the
I
nerves.
tend to overthink things. It is a very deep-seated anxiety about actually being perceived, which it's a maybe a bit of a contrary reaction to things.
Well, I think many writers can relate. So, for anybody just tuning in, John has won the 53rd iteration of our award. Issue 53, Wild Worship, is free to read on our website. You can check it out now at elegantliterature.com/magazine. John's story, What the Crows Canonise, is one of 10 stories, and it has won the $3,000 grand prize. So, John, once again, congratulations. Just as
Thank
we
you.
get started here, can you tell me, you just said you're coming down off the little high of it's been a lot to take in over the last couple of weeks. Can you describe the emotions and thoughts that were going through your mind when you saw contest winner underneath your name in the magazine? Where were you? What did you do? Who did you tell? That kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'd misjudged the timing of the release because there's a time zone difference. So I'd woken up pretty late at night with a baby foot in my ear. So I had put all the kids to sleep, and I just sort of like well, not exactly forgotten about it, but I just dozed off because I was exhausted. And uh, so I was awake, and I scrolled through my phone, looked at the honorable mentions, and I was really kind of hoping to get an honorable mention and sort of work my way up to a contest winner. But then I saw that it was published, and I was like, oh well, that's unusual. Um, and then I came down to my story, and I was hit by waves of. I'm sorry, this is a bit weird, but waves of disappointment and anxiety, disbelief, joy, uh, just a really deep-seated fear. It was sort of like you had come over and just kicked the training wheels off of my bicycle, and all of a sudden I have to like just do something. Um, but the important thing is, I couldn't really work out what all those feelings were in the moment. So I went down to the comments that you made, and uh, I needed to know if you had actually read the story the way I had meant it to be read. And when I saw you did, that's when something really settled and just big pride came out basically. Because winning kind of felt secondary to actually being understood for the story, and I can only say thank you for that. That was an extra bonus.
I'm very glad because writing those comments sometimes is a little anxiety inducing for me as well because you never know if you're interpreting the story as the author meant it to be interpreted. And while I'm analyzing your work, sometimes with our winners, they're new writers, they haven't had their work analyzed before, and it's very easy to be um, it's sometimes those stories are from your heart and you're being very vulnerable on the page, and to have somebody then maybe interpret it incorrectly, I'm very conscious of that possibility when I write the comments. So far, it seems to not have happened. But I always, I'm interpreting from where I'm coming from reading the story, and I'm very glad to
Mm,
hear that it resonated with you, since this is the first time hearing of it, and I never know. So I'm very glad, and thank you for that. Yeah.
yeah, no, you did an excellent job of reviewing it. I was very, very pleased. In fact, you added some things to that analysis that I hadn't really caught up to as well. Because I'm writing by ear, so I'm not really fully comprehending what my instinct for writing is
Mm.
putting on the page. So yep, it was it was
You didn't set out to make a great work of literary genius with layered meanings and themes for the reader to pick up on their sixth and seventh pass through reading it.
no, not at all. Um,
Well, I think
yeah,
that there is certainly some depth in it. I really liked it. I'm very excited to talk more about it now. I've got some questions. I had lots of comments about it. Now I've got questions for you, and I'm sure anybody watching this is probably going to have questions. On that note, anybody watching this who has not read the story or has read it a few weeks ago, or by the time this video comes out, maybe a little longer than that, and needs a refresher, one, I mentioned it's free to read, so definitely go read it again. It's a fantastic story. But John, if maybe you could, in 30 seconds to a minute, give us a quick recap or refresher about what your story is in your own words. Don't worry about you can spoil it. We're going to be getting right into the nitty gritty of it, so don't worry about beating around the bush. But just give us a refresher
okay.
about what we're going to be talking about today.
No problem. I actually rehearsed this a little bit beforehand because I knew it was coming. Um, this story is about a farmer who gives up. She's had a really tough year. She lost her child, and that was too much. Her husband walks out, and that was also too much. Her mom died, and then she makes a scarecrow that just doesn't work. And to top it all off, the neighbors are upset about how the post office has changed its working hours because it's a lame apocalypse. Then when her heifer dies, giving birth, the protagonist, Miss Honey, turns away from her old ways, from banks and dyeing corn, and worries about air travel in 9 to 5 masks, etc. Turns towards nature because sometimes thinking is just too much. So she stops, not exactly giving up, but surrendering, which was in my mind and sort of the whole thesis of this piece, a form of worship without the need of dogma. And also, there's some weird stuff about crows as well.
And some weird stuff about crows. The title being "What the Crows Canonized." Uh,
Not the original title, I must add.
oh, what was the original title?
Let's see, got my notes over here. Land of Milk.
Land of Milk. Interesting.
Yeah. Um, Originally was meant to be, basically. Okay, actually, this is a pretty big story. This wasn't the story I was intending to write. I had two other submissions that I was more keen on, the Deflated and Aftercare Shrine. Um, but I had these two really vivid images come into my head. A misshapen golden calf, as if like um, um, coming out of Egypt, the Jews had messed up their first attempt at making a golden calf, and then a lame crucifixion. I had to put those away. I couldn't let them show up in those other stories, so I put them in a different file and just carried on writing those other things. Hmm. So I'm a very visual writer, so I kept revisiting those two basic ideas, and eventually I had to really know what to do with the dead cow. So I went down the spiral of research, of the practicality and legality, um, and eventually the research spiraled from there into something that I hadn't actually planned, and I had this new story with twisted Eucharist, basically. Now I'm not I didn't mean to write anything that was about any specific religion. It's just that we are all very familiar with the Judeo-Christian sort of symbols, and that It was one of the things I was really trying to avoid writing a story to wild worship, because it's kind of the opposite of what you'd want and think about
Mhm.
for wild worship.
Yeah, I thought I think I mentioned in my comments that it definitely stood out to me in this issue because we had quite a number, many stories were about preaching and enraged or enraptured priests, doctrine, various gods and their perspectives on different things, and very few that were so much kind of disembodied from that, very primal in nature. Very like, and of course, mostly telling through a human lens, where you have a human main character, and it's set in actually what seems to be more of a near future environment than any sort of anything else. But you've got the end of that primal energy from it, and it didn't strike me as an obvious metaphor for some religion or a specific doctrine or anything like that. So that's quite what I liked. Yeah, I mean, the story, we're going to get into quite a lot of the details of the story and some of the things that you just mentioned. We're going to be, I've got questions about them. I'm very excited to talk with you about them. Before we get to there, though, I'm just wondering, this is your first publication with Elegant Literature. And congratulations, your first publication, you've won the award. That's is very few. I think people have had their first publication with us be the award winning. Is this your first paid publication in general? Have you been published elsewhere? Can you tell me a little bit more about your history as a writer?
I can. I've My writing group put together a collection of stories. So it's not exactly vanity press, but it was a charity offering. So that kind of counts as publishing, I guess. Um, but it was unpaid. And I've won four small story contests, but only one of those was published, and that was just before winning Elegant Literature. I think I just finished that story when I started working on these stories. And that was pretty exciting. That was with Carson Long's writing theory video and uh, Discord community. Um, Beyond that, I've really only been writing seriously for about 2 years as a hobby. Seriously as a hobby. So yeah,
Mhm.
I mean
Mhm. That's
it's
how
been a
I
very
think most
short.
people end up starting seriously as a hobby.
Yeah, I when I first started writing it, it was I was doing a little bit of on Reedsy, kind of like got um, little disillusioned with that group, and started writing more for myself. And then eventually, my therapist said, you should try doing writing as therapy, and that's when
Mm.
I really started digging into working out emotions and how things work, and human communication stuff. And so that's been very helpful for me.
Yeah.
And having good prompts, creative prompts, is extremely useful.
Well, I mean,
Okay.
certainly took this creative prompt and went in a good direction for it for me.
Good.
Yeah.
Um, I've, some of this is coming from the way I was approaching your prompts, and I'd submitted two stories previous to this, one for Melodies and Memories and one for Iron and Ink,
Mhm.
neither of which got anywhere. Um, and I'd learned, from each one, partially by going through, the lessons that Elegant Literature offers. So I got to learn a little bit more about how you like stories to be set up. Um, and so I watched a lot of the videos. And I think every time I wrote a story for this contest, it actually felt like a more complete story. And so yeah, thank you for offering the classes, and sort of that feedback's been very helpful.
That's fine. I'm very glad to hear that because that's kind of the point of this is when I started Elegant Literature was the contest and magazine hybrid that I thought was going to help new writers kind of get their starts. And then we added the community. so that new writers could have that sense of community and celebrate wins together, and also support each other through the harder times when you've been a series of rejections and things like that. But then it's obvious that we want a place to grow as well, and not just write and hope we're getting better. And so that's where sort of what I call the author HQ comes in, with the videos and the educational resources, and bringing in all those authors
Mm.
and editors, agents to help new writers. And I know it's going great for the people who attend the classes and people who take advantage of those resources. But to hear from you, who have used those resources to see measurable improvement month by month in your writing, and that here you are having won the contest, that's fantastic. That's the whole reason I've designed the system the way it is hopefully to encourage this kind of result. So thank you for telling me that. I'm
Mm.
very glad
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you found it useful.
Um, I wasn't really ready to win yet. Winning sort of changed the psychological contract in a way I wasn't really prepared for. It's like the thing I was doing privately suddenly had an audience, and I, I really been able to settle back into my writing routine since winning. But yeah,
You'll
I am
be
really really glad for the classes.
Well, you'll be
Um,
continuing to attend them, and we'll go over that. Well, or watch them online, or watch the recordings, however you were approaching it. We'll go over that a little bit more after the call, actually, when we talk about the prize stuff, because that's part of it. So don't worry. Now that you've won, you can still get access to those classes. They're still going to be hopefully help you on the next part of your journey when you're submitting with other people. But I like what you said, is that winning kind of knocked the training wheels off of the way you're thinking about writing now. Is now that well, I mean, now you're an award-winning author. You can put that in your bio when you submit to other places. And I don't think that that really needs to put the extra pressure on you to have. It's not every story needs to be an award-winning story. But I think that you can take it as a vote of confidence in your skill as a writer. And if you continue doing this, I expect to see more great pieces from you. Not that every piece has to be great or anything like that, but I think you certainly have some talent and skill, and I'm looking forward to reading more from your work. So let's get into the story itself a little bit more. First off, do you
okay.
have a favorite part of this story? Is there a certain scene or a certain line that really has appealed to you or has lingered with you that you're really proud of writing? What do you have a favorite part?
Hmm. Um, but funny enough, it's the interaction at the post office. Um, it's the mundanity of everybody when there's a super volcano that just exploded in America, and it's already killed their crops. Everything has changed, and Miss Honey is the only one who's noticed in this whole group. And people are always, just trying to stick with what they know. And of course, the N95s are obviously, part of the pandemic idea that, oh, there's something going on and it's killing people, so you need masks. But also, there's ash in the air and stuff. The entirety of Bozeman, Montana is gone. It's like being distributed through the atmosphere. A lot of this is sort of background,
Mhm.
a backstory for me. Um, but just having the post office shut down and change their hours, and people being moaning about that that to me is just absolutely hilarious, especially as the thing starts winding down from Miss Honey. So
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
that's
fantastic.
my favorite part.
It's like such mundanity in the face of such catastrophe, and people being people, really. As much
Mm.
as we wish they weren't sometimes. But I think you captured that quite well. That's very interesting. It's not the scene I would have expected you to have picked, but it certainly says something.
Well, what would you expect me to pick?
No, I mean, having just met you today, I can't say what I would have expected you to pick, but I would have thought something more along the lines of, closer to the end, with her taking on the scarecrow, putting on the burlap sack, getting onto the post, the lines about her having stopped. There's lots of very poignant and clear images in this piece, and A lot of them stuck with me. I mean, the post office scene, I think about as well. I think about a lot of the story quite often, to be honest.
Oh,
But
that's good.
it's just interesting to me to hear that the sort of that and your reasoning behind it, the mundanity of and
Mm.
kind of absurdity of it. So,
Yeah.
some of these questions I have here may we may have sort of touched on the answer already. You mentioned you kind of wrote it by ear, and this is not a story you intended to write, but kind of got ended up happening from some of the pieces of the others. But I'm going to ask them as I've written them anyway, just to see what happens. But we were talking about how your story presents worship without a god or a doctrine or any real clear intention of supernatural superpowers, religion of that kind of nature. As you were building the story, was that something that you kind of set out to work towards? Like you had mentioned that how much thought of that did that go into? Did you think about other people in the contest going the religious route and you were trying not to? Did it just emerge from the pieces of the story? Did it come as it was developed, or was it an intention that you set from the beginning? And how did you approach that?
I started this contest by writing down what I thought other people would write. So I just made a list, and right up at the top of the list was Christ in the wilderness, and then after that was Buddha being attacked by demons.
Yeah.
And I wanted to like get some of this stuff out, and it's sort of like start somewhere way down the list so I can sort of show myself doing something different.
Yeah, how much of the we'll call it the primal nature, the lack of religious doctrine and gods,
Okay.
was intentional as you were building the story versus emerged naturally.
Okay. Okay. Right. So after I've filled out a list of the things I almost certainly knew other people would write, I came to this point where I was thinking, we've got a lot of rituals. Rituals happen everywhere. What which rituals can we actually separate from dogma? Because religion has to start from somewhere, and that became the basic idea of this, where you've got people who might be, a religion is pointing at something with the rituals. So if you remove that something from the rituals, I
I
don't,
mean, it sounds like you put some thought into it in advance about what you wanted
yeah,
this piece to be about, and then it sounds like some of it emerged naturally as well. Bit of a hybrid, as that kind of question usually ends up being answered, is like, no, I didn't plan the whole thing from start to finish. It happened while I was writing it.
yeah,
But it's still a question I have to
yeah.
ask.
I kind of talked about this a little bit earlier with the two images that I came up with the sort of misshapen calf, golden calf, because this originally the story had the calf as actually sort of honey colored, and that's where I got Miss Honey's name from.
Uh,
It's a honey colored calf, so golden calf, and the lame crucifix. I I wrote those scenes as I had them in my head, and then I built the story between those two scenes. So the whole process was actually organic. And this is maybe why I'm struggling to sort of answer that question. It's it I'm taking bits and pieces that I didn't actually mean to be writing about, but they stuck out in my head. And then I had to write two completely different ideas together to make them sort of work. So I don't know. I hope that answers your question.
certainly became a cohesive whole uh, from those two disparate ideas. I mean, I would never have known that there was two separate things that you had to try and combine like that from reading the text of the story. It just feels like a very well done piece that is cohesive, cohesed. What a word, or not a word. Anyway, so the crows you mentioned, and there's some crows in it in the in your brief breakdown of the story. The crows feature pretty prominently in my mind, being in the final title and all through the text, right from the beginning, pretty much right through the end, I think. They feel really deliberate in their actions. They never really feel human, like we're talking about, but they do feel kind of understandable and they do feel relatable. How did you
Hmm.
approach writing the crows, keeping them grounded in nature while still feeling that ritualistic sense? And did you have to do any research into like crow behavior in order to write the story?
Um, the Crow side of this, because I wrote this story very quickly. This came together over about 3 days, that
Mhm.
all the way down even to the editing, because I was right at the wire for submission. Um, the Crows, I'd done a lot of research for them for a previous story, and I just drew bits and stuff, bits and stuff, bits from this other story about a boy who kills a white feathered crow, a Cronus crow. So the behavior was all there, and also in London there are crows everywhere, magpies as well. So I've got them in my backyard. I can watch them move around, and they're fascinating creatures. And I noticed they also come up in other stories in this edition as well. So somebody else was
Mhm.
thinking about crows too.
I think crows for
Um,
wild worship. I feel like it's a top of mind animal. I expected to see more crows than beavers.
yeah, 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 as you would. Um, uh, Absolutely. But there is something very thoughtful about the way crows move and that whole idea of being able to train them to bring you things, um, which is, in a way, you could kind of see it as a bit of a ritual as well, an exchange, you know. And, crows mourning dead as well. That's a very common thing, making collections of different types of objects. Um, but I'm not really sure how much more I had to think about them in this story. They were sort of an after effect of the lame crucifixion image that I had. You know, there were crows in the background. There were crows in the trees, um, and I eventually had to tie it together. And it's because they were there and they didn't actually have much other than just to be acting naturally and without any thought about the actual ritual, because they're not consciously trying to make a ritual. They're just doing what they do. At least that was what I was trying to get across. Um, they became very prominent in the story, which prompted me to change the name of the story from The Land of Milk to this, about the Crows Cannon. And that was a snap decision, like 15 minutes before I hit send.
I think it was the right decision for sure. The
I do too. I do too.
what the Crows canonize really evokes wild worship, whereas the Land of Milk, I can see where we're coming from with that. It certainly doesn't come through in the story as much as the Crows do. Like the title set the theme for what we're
Hmm.
looking at coming in. Um, I think spot on choice for sure. And
Yeah.
so there's the kind of two big components of the story is the crows, and then there's the narrator, Miss Honey, and her journey. And it's tragic for sure. But I also found her choices while being pretty uncomfortable a lot of the time, especially towards the end, highly uncomfortable. But also completely sort of believable to me in the context of this story. Whether or not I would have put on my dead mother's gloves and got up onto that post is a totally separate thing. I'm not in Miss Honey's situation after the summer of Ash. But how did you balance like trying to work through her? Because you can kind of see the descent through the text. Like she starts off grieving and sad, but fairly normal. She's still going to the shop, and by the end, she's doing the kind
Hmm.
of creepier things that make this a sort of horror story. How did you balance that? Without like balance her descent without losing the reader's empathy for her as a character. You didn't lose mine. I obviously very much enjoyed it, but it must have been something on your mind as you were coming to the sort of anti-climax of this story.
Hmm. Um, well, I tried my best to just inhabit her. Um, you could look at this story from the outside and see someone crashing, and it looks really surreal. But I was trying to look at everything from her point of view, to try to really reach out and it's like she's a farmer. She's going to be tough. She's not going to ask for help unless she really, really needs it. But then an awful lot of stuff has happened. Um, Her farm is functionally useless. She doesn't have any help for the farm. And you know, the world is changing, and she seems to be the only person who can feel who can see it coming. Um, in a way, I was sort of calling back to Salinger's Perfect Day for Banana Fish, and that the main character there was sorry, let me think. It's Seymour, I think. Um, he seemed really normal right at first, but there was certainly something darker happening. And instead of the little girl character, I've got the crows who are just innocents who just go along with whatever feels natural. And I sort of followed his pattern of, lots of stage directions, a lot of movement, then slowly stopping. Of course, Miss Honey takes a different direction than Seymour, but um,
Hmm.
by choosing to stop rather than removing himself. But I was trying to match that sort of feel, the sort of pacing, the walking into, um, well, walking in and slowly coming to a stop. So I don't know. Maybe it's just feeling the pacing, and that's what was driving the way I interpreted her movement.
It worked, yeah, and I mean, well, it worked for me. I'm assuming it works for other people as well. I think it's a fantastic story. Did you have people? Did you have beta readers? You mentioned that this is down to the wire, 3 days, and you're changing the title in the last couple seconds, kind of thing. How did you have beta readers for this project, and do you have beta readers for your other projects? How do you manage getting feedback with
Yeah.
your stories?
Well, I've got two writing groups on Discord that I use fairly regularly. The Blue Marble Storytellers, I use them a lot. We're really good active writing group. And then writing theory with Carson Long. I'm sort of like I'm there, but I'm not really doing as much beta reading except for contests that he runs. Um, for this specific story, no, there was just no time to do a beta read because it takes a couple of days for really to get and react to the feedback. The other two stories I had a friend read over, but again, normally I would have, but I was trying to do way too much for this 1 month.
This is 3 stories in total that you submitted for the Wild Worship.
I I, I wrote three brand new stories, edited one other one which was quite old to fit the prompt, and ended up not sending that one as well. So yeah,
Well, it works. I was actually just trying to pull up my my list for Wild Worship to see because I feel like you may have one of your other stories may have been in the honorable mention, but when I pulled it up, it crashed my internet. So we're gonna have to just not do that today. We can maybe talk about it another time. So I
okay.
mentioned in my comments that we kind of cross a boundary from normal to surreal almost without noticing it uh, in
Hmm.
the story. It happens gradually. Like there's lines like feeling the crow's heartbeat through their feet, and the images of the crows feeding the calf meat, which it's kind of implied that it's her mother, which is gross and definitely not normal for cows, if I'm not mistaken. Um, so that was, another uncomfortable line that shows things are often surreal. And of course, there's Miss Honey spending what was several days up on that post before the arrival of the neighbor and then finding the cow dead on the porch and then seeing her and then driving away. So all of these moments kind of building in surreality and strangeness. How much were you controlling that transition? And if so, what were your thoughts while writing it? And also are there any more sort of surreal or creepy bits that you cut out in the interest of keeping it to the word count? And what were they? That's a lot of questions in one,
All
but
right. Yeah, that's I'd like to. like to hit the second half of that. Was there a lot that I cut out? Yes. It was it had a very different character. The story. For the neighbor when she arrives, she goes up to the house and looks inside, and she's covering her face at that point because, well, in what got published, the calf was on the porch, but she was covering her face because Miss Honey's mother was still inside the house,
Ah,
long
jeez.
dead.
Jeez.
I had to take that out because it just totally changed the character of the story, and
Hmm.
it turned it into something you'd understand. You have a box for someone who's just gone crazy,
Yeah.
and that's not what this story was. This is a slow degradation of one's humanity.
Yes, because the whole beginning makes it seem like she's perfectly normal and just fallen on hard times, and
Yeah,
her actions, and then that's slowly down to find out as a reveal that nah, she's had her dead mom just sitting in the living room this entire time is it completely cheapens, I think, the effect of what you were trying to go for. And definitely a good cut.
yeah. See, I know there were other bits also that um, uh, one of the things that happened, which is something I took from the classes as well. I had a lot of moving back and forth between the barn and the field. In this final story, it was only to the barn to from the field to the barn and back to the field. I
She went
think,
back into the and back into
but
the barn.
anyway,
And she went into the barn
yeah,
twice.
uh, yeah, yeah. Okay, she went to the barn twice. Now that actually was a lot longer, and there was more moving back and forth
Hmm.
between the barn and the field as she like made small decisions that sort of pushed her away from humanity. Um, so I had to cut out a lot of that and compress it and just make scenes a little bit bigger. Um, and I think there are little artifacts of that still, in the text, but it helped achieve the right amount of stillness for the piece by not having as many scene changes. And when writing in such a constrained length, that is absolutely necessary for stories like this.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a tight word count to get in for a lot of writers.
it
I
is.
know that there have been writers that have written a piece for us that was like 3,500 words, and then they were just unable to cut it down to be something that they were happy with it within our word count. It's a tight word count,
Mm,
but I mean, I'm sure you read issues of the magazine in the past as you're getting familiar and submitting
mm.
with us. People can do quite a lot with only 2,000 words. Some very, very impactful stories. And
Yeah,
the second
yeah.
part of that question. Oh, sorry, continue.
Oh, I was just saying that I've learned a lot about compressing without removing the the important parts just
Mhm.
through a lot of the classes as well. So yeah, carry
I think it's a practice game as well, and it also depends on the stories. There are many stories that are within the word count that we have that the judge's notes are this needed more space, like this doesn't work this short, or this is the first chapter of a novel. But it's a skill, but also it depends, I think, on the story. If the scope of the story is too broad, condensing it won't do the story justice, and it doesn't work. You do need that more space.
on.
But there are things that you can do to bring it down. And this story, I think, was this one pretty much just exactly 2,000 words, if I remember correctly. Pretty close to that.
It was 1,600,
Oh, it's
I
shorter.
think.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow. It
when
did a
my
lot
first
with that
draft
detail.
was my first draft was 1,900.
Yes. Okay. Very good. Yeah. Yeah. Excellently, excellently done for such a impactful story about stillness. In the end, there was plenty of motion and a lot of impact for me. The second part of that question, I'm not sure if we quite answered it, but the question was, were you controlling the transition from like kind of normal to strange? and what were your
Hmm.
thoughts were. I'm pretty sure that you pretty much answered that already. What do you think?
Okay.
Is there more you want to say on
Possibly.
that?
I mean, I could if you want me to.
Sure.
I
Yeah,
could
of
try
course.
to anyway.
That's what we're here for.
Um,
Yeah, the normal to surreal. How much control were you exerting over that, and what were your thoughts while managing that descent?
okay. Um, well, I kind of didn't plan it. The whole story grew organically. The crows came to me as part of the initial image, and I had asked what they were doing, and the answer was that they were doing what living things do, especially when they find something with gravity, they organize around it. And Miss Honey was sort of circling this gravity as well. Um, so the liturgical quality arrived through logic of the crows and not how things were imposed on them, and she just joined it. So this is giving us a ritual without context, um, and this abdication of humanity. So she's leaving behind all the mundane, and I had to control that quite a bit with my final edits, and because I was trying to narrow down on what would end with her in the position that I had the visual image for. So this is going back to like my very initial ideas for the story. I had to actually stay true to her ending up where she was. And also, I wrote that last scene first.
Oh,
So I was working to that. So
yeah. So
that's maybe
lots of control. Yeah, I came across.
yeah, but
You
it was
mentioned
controlled, but it
pacing.
was also organic.
Yes. You've mentioned pacing a couple of times, and I think that it sounds like you're conscious about how you walked through the story and the journey that the character went on.
Hmm.
And even though you kind of have these points and you're working towards them, you're deliberately it's evolving as you go, and you're having it, you're figuring things out as you go, but you're also deliberately controlling the pace and the emotions and what the reader hopefully is experiencing, which worked. I mean, you did it perfectly for me, as you say that my comments were on the nose, on the nose. I mean, that's not the right phrase, but on target, and I'm very glad. And you should know, I'm very glad that what what you did worked for me. So we're both happy with that.
Recently, since I started Elegant Literature and working through these prompts, I sort of had a bit of a frame shift in how I look at stories. And I stopped trying to write to win something or to, impress other people. What I wanted is to really just make something that people will think about. I like, basically, if you've got a beta reader or uh, even a filtering judge or something. I want them to go home and actually think about the story, even if it doesn't get passed on for an award or something. I want to be that little earworm, and I think I've kind of pulled it off with this story reasonably well.
Yeah, for sure. I actually think that's a very wise framework to use in general. It's there's variations on it. Like, don't worry, don't write for money or don't write for publication. Write what you wanna tell because your enthusiasm and your passion will come through. But yeah, don't write to win the contest. Write to make the reader think. And if they're thinking about it, they're remembering it, and it's making an impression on them. And that's what good stories do. And the good stories are the ones that rise to the top of the pile for the filtering judges and for the head judges and end up getting selected for awards. So that strategy works. Now that you've won a contest and you're an award-winning author, don't change that strategy. Keep writing things that people will think about and remember. I think that works for you. It worked with this story.
Absolutely.
Sure, it worked
Yeah.
with me. Now, you just said that the ending was actually the scene you wrote first. The ending for me felt very
Mm.
restrained. There's no explosion. There's no clear resolution either. It's not like a happy ending or a sad ending. It's just an ending. Just like she stopped. It was one of the lines you wrote that felt very powerful to me. It's just like a kind of stillness as the ending. What made you choose to end the story there? Like, what were you and what were you hoping the readers would be left feeling afterwards?
Hmm.
You
Um,
wanted us to go away thinking about it. Did you have emotions for us in mind? Yeah.
this one, I didn't really plan out how I wanted it to end up. It sort of organically landed here with this, um, let's see, leaving behind the old guard of the post office and the grocery stores and just the whole world and just relaxing. Um, I think I was taking that a little bit from this idea of just surrender. Um, and in a way, I was talking to you before we started filming about martial arts. A lot of martial arts is being able to do the things without thinking about what you're doing and getting across that sort of state of mind, that flow state through a story, which is kind of a goal I've been working on with this and other similar stories. Um, it's just something I'm trying to work with right now.
I like hearing about the flow state. I think that it's a thing that can happen. I mean, certainly a lot of writers will have experienced it when sort of it's just happening where it almost feels like the words are flowing out. You get so much done in such a short period of time. Very much like the martial arts, where if you're not thinking about it, you're just doing. But that takes practice. Very
Mm,
few writers are going to approach their first blank page and find flow state quickly from that. It takes practice. It takes knowledge of craft. Like in martial arts, you have to learn the forms. You have to be practicing them. You have to practice them in different environments. Just today, my master was talking about how if you if you forget, it's because you haven't locked in the muscle memory yet. If you forget the next move in a form, you haven't locked in the muscle memory. You can't possibly achieve your flow state if you're still thinking about what to do next because you're thinking. It's the opposite of kind of the flow state that you want to drop in. But it's also the environment where if in our training grounds here, if you forget something, you can pause, you can think, you can remember it. But when you're up on stage at the performance, we have a performance coming up, and this is why he's talking about it. When you're up on stage performing, if you forget there, the environment is going to be so different, you have no chance of really remembering what you're doing, and that flow state is going to slip away from you. So, when you're as a writer creating an environment where you can be comfortable and remember how the craft feels and having the skill of having practiced the craft, like the knowledge of doing the craft before, and enjoying
yep.
it, and then and the practice of having done it, and then at that point you can kind of be comfortable and slip into your creative flow state and let those things come to you.
Yeah.
And now that I'm
I,
talking
I,
about
I,
it, I'm on topic anymore.
yeah. Well, it's this is actually useful for ritual and the discussion of ritual because those flow states that you get into, you can set up rituals that will help you get into the flow states.
Hmm.
Um, and also, there are two directions to make ritual. You can have something that needs to be done and be taught, and so you standardize it through a ritual. My kids, they wash their hands to the ABC song.
Hmm.
You've got the Shinto sword making in Japan, where you've got a ritual putting on the right clothing. The blacksmith's area is a part of a shrine. You've got all of this ritual to put the spirit inside the sword. Um, that is one direction for ritual. But then you could also have, you do this and something else happens. So you keep doing that thing, and the other thing, maybe it keeps happening, maybe it doesn't, and that's a very sort of almost Pavlovian response to ritual, and you know, it when you add dogma, it sort of confounds things and makes it really kind of hard to understand what the background is. sometimes, and that's another aspect of the story that I was trying to push.
Yeah. Fascinating that it, it works like that. So it's and hopefully anybody who's watching this or listening to this and thinking, what are we talking about with flow state and ritual and getting into that creative Zen mode? If you haven't experienced that, it actually can happen. It does happen, and you can create the best environment for it to happen for yourself. Um, but it won't happen the first time you pick up the pen. That's for sure. And if it does,
Yeah.
that's amazing. I've not heard of it, and you're probably some sort of prodigy. But it's a lot of fun. Okay, so this actually transitions pretty well into that was interesting hearing your philosophy on that kind of thing. I want to talk more about you now as a writer rather than just the story itself. You've lived in very different cultural environments. You said you grew up in the deep south. You've moved to London. How has that shift? How has it shaped the way you perceive normal versus strange or surreal in your writing? Or did that happen? Like, when was that a recent change? Was that a childhood change? And how is that? Did it impact your writing at all? If if you weren't a writer when you moved, then maybe this question is way off. But tell me a little bit about that.
Right. So maybe if I answer a little bit more about some of my history and writing here as well, that will help. When I was in high school in the States, I had a long distance girlfriend. We used to write back and forth a lot, and she was like, you really should look into going into a writing program because you're pretty good at writing. And I was like, nah. Um, Moved over to England around, well, initially 1998, then again in 2001. Yeah, 2001. And it wasn't until many, many years later that I actually tried writing again because I wanted to impress a different girl. Um, I was like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to write a story, get it published on Drabblecast, and then you know she'll be impressed. And that rejection shut me down for nearly 14 years. And then yeah, I picked it up again, and yeah, the cultural difference is not as jarring as you might imagine. People are different here. I hear different languages around me all the time. Um, the character of the people isn't all that different, though. Um, I went from Little Rock, Arkansas, which is, a pretty good city, fairly, easy to get around, and make friends and just it's decent food and everything, to a big city, which was a bit of a shock, and it took me a long time to actually sort of find my feet. But when I did, it felt very normal to me because my father's English.
Ah.
Um, so I always had a little bit of an accent. Well, according to the Arkansans, it's a very
Yeah.
strong English accent. But over here, everybody just hears basically a Canadian accent because that's what I get most often. You
The
sound Canadian.
Arkansas mixed
Where in
with
Canada are
British.
you from?
Arkansas mixed with a little
Mixed Canada.
British is Canadian now.
Yeah. Um, it's been weird in certain ways, but very re relaxed and calming in others. I got into working in museums and with artists, and really sort of coming into uh, ways of making money from expressing myself in design, basically, because I'm a special effects engineer, and that's helped me be creative because I've always tried to be creative, but um, it's easier here to actually find outputs for my creativity than it was back at home.
hmm Yeah, fantastic. Um, and so you design interactive exhibits for museums and artists. You say in your bio, and you just mentioned just now.
Hmm.
Tell me more about what that entails.
Um,
I know
well,
it's not writing. I know it's not writing.
basically,
It is a creative adjacent field, right?
but in my head, any writing is sorry, try again. In my head, any writing is good writing. Um, so I get lots of ideas passed on to me. Like someone in an interpretation department wants to show how something works, say biology of a specific type of bird, sort of like how fast their heart beats, for instance. So they say, how can you illustrate that? And I give them options. You can have a board that when you touch it, you can feel the bird's heartbeat. Then you add a video that matches the beating on the hand. Um, it's I do some I take the proposals, I work out what they actually need, which is kind of a lot of what writing is as well, and give them something that is actually achievable, and then I build it. There's computer aided drafting, computer aided 3D printing, CAM systems. It's a lot of electronics and construction all at the same time.
I mean, that sounds fascinating in its own right. I'd love to talk more about that, but probably have to keep it on the writing for anybody watching this video. But it sounds like fulfilling and also varied work. Like it's not the same thing every day. It allows you to flex
Yeah.
those creative skills. Um,
Having that ability to have a different job every day really appeals to me, and it's also something I would have been very hard pressed to find in my hometown.
For sure. And writing can offer something similar, I think, as well. Is when you're working on new stories, you're thinking about new angles and yeah, and it all works together. Do you find that the work that you do influences how you think about the reader experience in your stories, or their immersion while you're writing fiction, or does it just translate with giving you some ideas through the exhibits? How does it affect your writing?
Yeah, it absolutely does in one very simple way. What I've found is when an interactive exhibit is very, very constrained, it has the best response. So, um, one of the best things I've designed was a device that measures how big your hand is and projects the bones inside your fingers, like
Uh-huh.
from above. Very simple. I mean, electronics took me like a day to build. Then I just found a set of bones and had them zoomed to different sizes to match what the handprint was measuring. And then you put it next to a Ganges river dolphin fin. The bones inside the Ganges river dolphin fin look very much like a human, except the radius and ulna is shorter. That's all it needed. Very constrained, very simple. It's obvious what's happening. And that is something that I've been working on a lot with my writing, because like everyone, you're going to sprawl out and go down all kinds of different alleyways with writing when you're starting, and training that in has been very useful.
Yeah, for sure. I like that. Just simple, constrained, and you can apply that to writing is keep the core of the story, especially with short stories, something like this. The core of the story is simple and constrained. You leave the sprawling for, your 3 month trilogy epic, something like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. You also mentioned in your bio that you're working on a collection right now. Um, are there recurring ideas or themes that you're finding yourself drawn to while you're working on that collection? And are you implementing your framework of simple, constrained, and make them think about it into the collection?
Um, a bit. I mean, I've sort of been thrown all over the place with that collection. Basically, Um, so I think the main collection that I was working on has been subverted romances. So it's following a character through dating life in London, and things just really not working very well for him. But I'd started writing in a lot of magical realism. So every chapter had a very strong, or well, I'd say chapter. It's every story had a moment of magical realism. I don't know where it's going really, but some of those pieces have done really well. They've been received quite well with my writing group. So I'll see. But yeah, a simple and constrained is not what the first ones I wrote for that are. I've got a couple of 10,000 word stories, which really could have been 4,000 at most.
Oh,
So
big
yeah,
cut.
I'm trying. I'm trying to focus in, but you've got to get that stuff out of the way first.
You have to, yeah. And
Uh,
we're always improving, we're always growing, we're always finding our way and our approach to things. So, and
yeah,
I think as we grow as writers too, it starts like the sort of the simple and constrained starts to become more prominent until we've mastered like until the craft is you feel like you have a really good grasp on it, and then you can start sprawling out a little bit with within that. It's a little hard to explain off the top of my head here. I gotta maybe write something about that. Guess it's not an easy concept to talk about a little bit. Um,
yeah.
so speaking of growing as a writer and improving, you said you've been taking this seriously as a hobby for a couple of years now. You're now a published author. You've been paid a professional rate. You're also an award-winning author, getting paid $3,000 for a single story is pretty nice. What's next for you? Are you going to continue treating it just as a serious hobby? Do you have any plans to pursue it? If I could send you 5 years into the future, 10 years into the future, how do you see writing integrating with your life, with your work, with your family?
Right. This is a kind of harder for me to picture. I'm really enjoying writing for myself right now, and this is maybe why it was a little bit traumatic to actually have won this contest because I was hoping to like you get a few honorable mentions first and move on from there. Um, yeah, when I started writing properly, I couldn't stop. I got stuck on it as something that was just like an engine. It's just driving me to carry on and work really, really hard to get stories out. And I've only just got to the point where I'm comfortable submitting to magazines. So really, that's the next thing. So I've already had a couple of nibbles, and so I'm got my fingers crossed for other stories going out. But there are other contests as well. I'm just going to have to change focus. But
Yeah.
yeah, there are quite a few magazines I'd really like to get into.
There are quite a few. I have to laugh. You may be the first person that's ever told me I kind of wanted more honorable mentions before I won this award. Most people are pretty much like, this is it. And I love your approach of I actually wanted more time to just not have pressure. But I also think that you don't necessarily have to have pressure from having won the award. I think you continue on writing for
Yeah,
yourself as normal, submitting other places. I mean, you could just as easily not put this in your bio that you've won this award. I would prefer that you did so that people, when you get published other places and everybody goes, wow, this guy's such a great author. I love his work. They can know that you've been published in Elegant Literature and find their stories here and maybe find us through your success. But
yeah,
I also fully believe if you don't, whatever helps you feel like you've written the best or are able to write the best stories and produce the best work. And I think for some people that means not putting pressure on themselves, not necessarily trying to bring accolades to their name and open more doors and just coming along and writing what matters to them. Does that make sense?
yeah. It does absolutely, and I must. also say another thing that is maybe a little bit of reluctance for me to have to move on is your prompts are fantastic. They limit the prompt, limit the palette just enough to allow a lot of creativity. And I was kind of curious on, do people like overshoot it, or have you had any? Maybe a better question is, have you had any trouble over constraining or under constraining the prompts? Sorry if this is
No,
off
no, no.
topic for you.
No, no, it's perfectly fine. The prompts are one of the things that we're best known for sure. And they're one of the main things I get compliments on. I enjoy writing them. It's one of my biggest creative outlets. As I haven't been running the business, I haven't made a ton of time to do any personal writing or anything like that. But when it comes to the prompts, I get to have a lot of fun with them. And they come from the idea, not like the prompts themselves come from, but the idea where you say that they're the perfect kind of constraint, the perfect palette, which gives you the opportunity to get very creative within a box comes from, I read as a business book called Brain Steering a very long time ago, and talking about how I mean, it was a antithesis to, I don't know if antithesis is the right word, but it was against brainstorming and more about brain steering. And one, I remember very much one of the experiments, thought experiments in the book was basically talking about how if you give somebody, if you just say, think of anything, it's very difficult to do. Tell me any story, and you kind of draw a blank right away. But if you say, tell me about the most fun vacation you've ever had, you have a constraint that is vacations, and your brain now sorts through all the vacations you've had and can pick out the best stories that you've had, for example. Whereas just tell me the best story, it makes it more difficult to what is the best story, what are we even talking about here? We're talking fiction, we're talking personal life stories, that kind of stuff. When you have the constraint, you actually can be more creative with where you go with it. So when I did the prompts, it was meant to be a constraint that's not a constraint. Like if you notice, most of the prompts you can pretty much write about anything. Um, some of them, gentle gravity is the current one, beneath the words. There's so many ways you can go with that, and because we're all open to all genres as well, we get tons of stuff from historical to romance to westerns to the more prevalent science fiction, fantasy, horror, contemporary literature. But the prompts are really designed for you to be able to go any direction you want, but give you that slight constraint that produces ideas and inspiration, and you kind of pick an idea, a direction that resonates with you, and follow that and find yourself into whatever story you want. We do have, and some it varies with prompt to prompt. Some of them are more constrained. For ink and iron, the way I wrote, like sometimes like I really drawn to that prompt and some of the images that I have associated with it. And then when I actually sit down to write it, I go, okay, I've got war, and I've got books, and I've got blood. And so, quite a lot of things written in blood for that theme. But we get a lot more, the prompts end up being a lot more we get some stories that are very narrowed by the prompt. So we'll see quite a few of the same stories again and again. Just like you said, you wrote your list, and what are people probably going to write about? Or what are the first ideas that come to mind for me? Well, those are probably going to be the same ideas that come to mind for a dozen out of several hundred other people. And so when people just go with that first idea, we end up getting a lot of the same stories. But on the flip side, we also get quite a lot of stories where I'm kind of like, is this on the prompt at all? Like I have to kind of like read the text again and really, I'm like, that was a wonderfully written story. It was a really good story. I loved it. Was it on theme? Like I do need to find some connection to the theme, and I'm very lenient with that because the point is to have the thin veil of constraint and let people write whatever they want as long as they can tie it back. And so as long as there's even like a line or two in there that I can find, that's good. And so some of them go very far wide, some of them go very constrained, and then some of them are just very creative within the prompt, within the theme. And so I think it works very well. I've kind of rambled on here, but that's the thought process around the themes. I'm very glad to hear that you enjoyed them.
Mm.
Uh, and
Yeah.
I highly encourage you to continue using the themes um, to write as one of the things, and I touch on this after the call anyway, but one of the things that people always say is that, what am I going to do every month now? I don't have this cool theme to write to. I don't have this prompt. I don't have this contest to submit to. Just keep using the prompt. Every month, the theme's still going to be there. You're in the community. You can write a story around the theme and the prompts and take advantage of
Mm.
the excitement and the buzz and the hype and the idea storms that are coming from other people. If other people in your writing groups or in the community are coming up with ideas and talking about the story and getting excited, write the story like you would have anyway, in the same constraints within the same time period, and then just submit it to a different place. And there you go. You're still involved and you still get the aspect of it. So feel free to do that. That's what I recommend to all of our
Absolutely.
award winners. Um, so, speaking of being an award winner, you are an award-winning author. And although, may feel like you're at the beginning, you may feel like it's a serious hobby, you may feel like the training wheels have only just been knocked off right now. The fact is, your writing is very well done. It's a very quality written piece that we published here. From speaking with you, obviously you have some very deep thoughts about creativity, about flow, about what writing is. You're an artist sort of through and through, it sounds like. So there are going to be people possibly listening to this that, would love to be where you are, would love to, in the next, you're somewhere, not to put a hierarchy on it, but they might feel like you're a step ahead of them now that you won an award, you've got this great story, you've got the way that you think about it. What advice might you give to somebody that's looking up at you and going, I would love to be where he is in the next year or two or three? Any advice for them?
Um, one, actually just write the story and submit it. If even if it doesn't go anywhere, if you don't submit, you won't, actually earn anything from the experience. Well, you would, but I mean, nothing, solid. Getting that honorable mention first is what I was aiming for. So I didn't exactly have a high goal here, but also be prepared as soon as you hit submit to see flaws in your story. Like for this one, because I write by ear, I reread the story after I saw that it won, and I saw so many things that I would have changed. Right, so like stage directions. Miss Honey did this and then that, and then she turned up, she got up, she stood over there, she walked. All these stage directions just just screamed at me as a fault. But after a week, I kind of realized that no, she's coming to a stop. So you need that contrast of her getting up and moving and doing a thing and doing another thing. Um, Trust your instincts. Um, Let the story sort of breathe. Don't over edit. Just, get a story done. Um, Over two and a half years, I've built up, I think, 70 stories, just in, just various levels, different qualities. Um, if you've got the bug to write, please just write. Um, but at the same time, I know it's not worthwhile to force it either. Some people don't; they're just not able to have a specific time when they write. I'm like that. Um, I've got two kids, so I'm writing on my phone most of these stories. At night, the baby like curled up against me. I'm just like all
That
thumbs.
doesn't sound like a bad way to
Um,
write at all.
but I think it actually helps with the shorter format as well, and to be writing by phone because you can't sprawl out and do a lot of world building. Um, but also, don't limit yourself to a specific genre. Try to write other things. One thing that helped me the most, though, is find a story you like and just copy it word for word by hand.
Hmm.
That taught me more about pacing and word choice and description and silly things like when to use, single quotes rather than double quotes, stuff like that. I mean, all of that is out there, and you can, do all of this self-taught and just by doing the work. So,
100%. I think that's
um,
ex bunch of excellent advice all wrapped up in one there. Yeah. Especially especially like the the hand copying is a technique that I've been suggesting people do for a long time. And all of all of the lessons you can have are already out there. You don't like this is from somebody who runs like half of Elegant Literature as an education business where we basically charge for education. We're trying to do the best to make sure that the education is as affordable as possible to as many writers as possible rather than these hugely expensive writing courses and degrees and things like that. But you can get a solid base foundation of writing and even up to an advanced level just from looking at materials that are free out there for you. Well, maybe buy the book from the author that you want to hand copy from, but there's lots of lessons to be had just from interacting with text that you already enjoy. You can get a hugely advanced curriculum, basically self-taught in writing, just from material you probably already
hmm.
have lying around your house. Of course, yes, if you can get access to some professional authors and editors and agents and people like that, that's one of the reasons we do our education the way we do, is because they have industry experience that can help you fast track your learning. But it's not necessary. You can definitely get a solid basis of understanding for writing just by really engaging with the material you already love to engage with. To add on to your
Well,
advice
it's how you learn how to draw. Yeah, how you learn how to draw. It's how you learn how to sculpt. You copy other masterworks.
there.
It's it 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 fits really really well for writing as well, and don't dismiss it. Another thing to do, which is kind of related, is to rewrite a story, but from a different genre as well, which is a good way to like spur new ideas. So if you're stuck and you don't know what to write, copy someone else's story or try to modify it, make something completely different from the story. That's I mean, it gets the juices flowing.
Yeah, sure does. Fantastic. And would you? I know you're fairly new to Elegant Literature. You've submitted a couple of times, but you did mention that you're a little sad that you can't continue with it. Would you say that Elegant Literature has helped you in your journey as being a writer here? Perhaps like you could say, yes, I won an award, so yes. But even maybe outside of that, has it helped you? If so, how? And would you recommend it to other writers looking to start their careers?
I absolutely must say it has helped me a lot. Um, I started on the let's see, it was is it 51? It was a Melody and Memory,
I think so, yeah.
Melodies and Memory. I wrote that after joining. See, it was about 10 days between joining Elegant Literature and writing that story and submitting it. Um, and after that, I spent a long time going through um, the the education um, aspect of Elegant Literature, and I learned exactly why that first story would not get anywhere. Um, I mean, the details don't really matter, but because I had access to these, I was able to sort of work out why it wouldn't succeed. And then I saw that it didn't get an honorable mention or anything. And then I've tried to fix those things for the second one. And then I've found, no, I've got completely different problems than that. And of course, I'm guessing, but I'm guessing through having the feedback of looking at other people's stories in the Discord server that didn't progress either. So I've gone through and sort of taken from all of those different sources, from the education side, from the other people offering their stories for criticism, and whatever happened, it worked, and here I am, you know, richer and award winning.
Yeah, fantastic. And would you recommend other writers use elegant literature as, a beginning stepping stone on their journey? Have you found it useful for you?
Yes, absolutely. This is a great way to start writing to really good, high quality prompts, and just getting some stories out there. Um, the the Discord server is actually quite good for discussing writing craft and getting feedback on stories. Yeah, if you're starting out, give it a go. It, it's not expensive. It's just just try it. It's fun actually.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'm glad it's fun. That is one of the primary things I want it to be for writers. Fun, but also a good thing for for careers for people to get started. That's the whole mission of Elegant Literature is to help new writers succeed. And I hope I think we're doing it. I think we're doing it. So, John, you have won the Elegant Literature Award for New Writers. It comes with a $3,000 prize and a bunch of other stuff we're going to be talking about in just a few minutes. I just want to say congratulations again. It's been absolutely fantastic speaking with you. It's really the way you are approaching writing with your thoughts, with your techniques, with your frameworks. I think that if you continue applying yourself as you are, you have a long career with no training wheels on in your future. I'm certainly a fan. I absolutely love what the Crows Canonise. I think it certainly deserves winning this award and being selected as the contest winner. And I'm very much looking forward to reading more work from you in the future. Not in elegant literature, as you're a professional author in our eyes now. You're an award-winning author, but in other magazines that you are looking forward to being published in. I have no doubt that you will if you keep approaching it like this. And I'm very much looking forward to reading those stories too. So you've got a fan in me, and congratulations once again.
Thank you, thank you. It's been a blast.
Fantastic. It's been a blast speaking with you. And to everybody else, thank you so much for watching this. I hope you have gotten great takeaways from what John and I have talked about. And just a reminder that there are now over 530 stories contained in the pages of Elegant Literature's magazines, 53 issues, all of them free to read at elegantliterature.com. And if you're a new writer, come check us out. Submit your work. As John says, don't think too much about it. Just write it and submit it. You never know what could happen. We're looking forward to reading it. So thank you all. Thank you, John. And everybody have a wonderful rest of your day.